Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 199, September the 21st, 2017, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in, especially to today's video, because today's video is one of the most important videos that I've ever done. For those of you who've been watching my videos, or for those of you who've never watched my videos or are new to my videos, just so you know, I began doing the TowerGate videos 2 days after Trump tweeted out that that Obama had wiretapped him. It took me about 2 days just to think about that. I had a strong feeling in my gut that something was very wrong here. And the more I thought about it, the more I decided that this story was real, it was true, and it was going to be bigger than Watergate. So I decided to create a personal diary. But rather than getting a little book and writing things down every day, I thought that I would do a video diary, which I would call TowerGate. Today I'm going to reveal to you, as we now have enough pieces of the puzzle that we can see clearly what the picture is, what the puzzle should look like. You can go back to my very early TowerGate videos where I laid out for you what I thought was happening, and it appears that my gut failed me very little, very, very little. Because about 90% of what my gut told me has turned out to be true. Time is of the essence. So let's get to the breaking news stories, and then I'll get right into the main topic of the video. Hold on to your seats. The breaking news of the day is as follows. Huma and her pervert husband, Anthony's Weiner, appeared in court this week with their lawyers requesting that the judge make their divorce proceedings secret. They wanted the case to be in the public record as anonymous versus anonymous, with no notes or no proceedings from the court recorder entered into the documents that would normally be in the public domain. The judge said, nah, no. The case will proceed forward. The divorce case will proceed forward. There will be none of this anonymous versus anonymous. The proceedings will go on just as they normally do for anyone else, and it will be in the public record. Next, we also must keep in mind that Anthony's Weiner, aka Carlos Danger, soon to be known as Carlos Danger Bobbitt, will be facing his sentencing next week in front of a judge to find out how long he's going to be in the slam. For the crimes that he has been charged and proven guilty of carry a minimum of 15 years in prison. However, sources close to the case say that the lawyers for Huma and Carlos Danger Bobbitt are trying to work a deal whereby Weiner may only get 20 months in prison. We'll be watching this sentencing very closely. If Carlos Danger Bobbitt only receives 20 months on a charge that normally requires at least a minimum of 15 years, I'm going to raise some hell. And I'm sure most of you will as well. Let's not let Carlos walk. He's a danger. He's a danger to your children if you live in his neighborhood, I can assure you that. Or if your children are ever on the internet, you never know where Carlos Danger Bobbitt may be lurking. Although 20 months in prison for someone convicted of the type of sex crimes that he's being sentenced for, they generally don't do too well in the prison population, if you know what I mean. We will find out soon whether Carlos Danger is a screamer. And let's not forget, how did Weiner get his pecker in the chopper? Well, it was the Rotten Reverend. Remember, it was the investigation into the Rotten Reverend's mishandling of classified emails that led the FBI to go take a look at that laptop where they found the dick pics. Once again, as I've told you, there was a very long list of people who have associated with the Clintons. They are all either dead, in jail, or had their lives ruined, or soon will have their lives ruined, Mr. Brennan. The Rotten Reverend is now going after Melania Trump for not preventing cyberbullying, as if she could prevent cyberbullying, as if anybody gives a flying shit about cyberbullying. The snowflakes. When I was a kid, if someone bullied me, my dad said punch him in the nose as hard as you possibly can, and he'll stop bullying you. It works. If that doesn't work, kick them in the nuts. Poke their eyes out. Doesn't matter. Don't get bullied. And anything that happens on the internet, that type of bullying and stuff like that, it's just the internet. Let's not forget that the Rotten Reverend bragged about killing Qaddafi. It was the thugs that she organized under the Central Intelligence Agency that helped them locate the vehicle of Muammar Qaddafi, president of Libya. They ran him off the road, and then they gutted him with a knife anally. And I understand they sodomized him beforehand with a knife. And then Hillary said, "We came, we saw, he died." What a sick, sick woman. If she is a woman. I think the children of Satan may be gender neutral. She was probably hatched out of a rotten egg. That's how she became a Rotten Reverend. And Crooked Hillary to boot. Let's also not forget that she's the one who launched the vicious attacks on her husband's accusers back when he was president. Dozens of women came out and accused Slick Willie of everything from sexual assault, sexual misconduct, all the way to rape. And it was the Rotten Reverend who was put in charge of the bimbo eruptions. She used union thugs to intimidate these women. They called them in the middle of the night and threatened them and their families, threw bricks through their windows, flattened their tires, followed them through town. Horrible things that the Rotten Reverend did to those women who were sexually assaulted by her pervert husband. And she's worried about cyberbullying. What a disgusting witch she is. The Rotten Reverend says that Trump presents clear and present danger to the United States. No. The president is going to make America great again. But he does present a clear and present danger to you and all your friends, Reverend. We haven't forgotten that little comment you made that if Trump won the election, you and all your friends would have your necks in a noose. Damn Skippy. James O'Keefe from Project Veritas now putting everyone on notice that in the next couple of weeks, maybe sooner, his biggest investigation yet is going to drop. He says people will be fired, and he's hinting that it may be people at the Clown News Network. Now, the story of the day. For the past nearly a year now, the investigative division of True Pundit, whose stories we've been covering now throughout this time period, throughout the past 6-8 months, have been working with their sources, FBI high-ranking FBI officials and State Department officials who have been giving them intelligence information, providing them with information to write their stories, their sources. And as I've been reporting on a lot of these things, a lot of the reports that they've been putting out have been turning up to be true. Their sources, much like Deep Throat did in Watergate, giving them little bits of information here and there. So now they've compiled all this information from their sources, and we now have a lot of the pieces of this puzzle. And we're beginning to see a very, very clear picture emerge. We're getting a good look at what this puzzle actually is supposed to look like. It's becoming very, very clear. It's exactly what I believed happened many, many months ago when I started doing these TowerGate videos. In the most recent meetings, secret meetings I should say, between the True Pundit Investigative Division and their FBI sources, who are high level, we are now being given the following information. Listen closely. 6 U.S. agencies conspired to spy on Trump using illegal wiretaps. British intelligence was used as a front to spy on the Trump campaign for the NSA. This is their conclusion from what they've learned at True Pundit's Investigative Division. From the beginning, it was a setup to find dirt on Trump's campaign insiders and, if possible, to thwart Donald Trump's presidential aspirations before and after the 2016 election, and it remains ongoing. None of it was or is legal. High-ranking FBI sources have told True Pundit Investigative Bureau that the FBI played a definitive role in plotting the sweeping privacy breach with help from the NSA, CIA, Director of National Intelligence, that's James Clapper, the Treasury, Financial Crimes Division, as well as the Department of Homeland Security, the Justice Department, and federal law enforcement. 6 U.S. spy agencies created a stealth task force spearheaded by CIA John Brennan, who works for who? The Rotten Reverend. Brennan ran domestic surveillance on Trump associates and possibly Trump himself. To feign ignorance and to seemingly operate within U.S. laws, the agencies freelanced the wiretapping of Trump associates to the British spy agency GCHQ. Remember, the GCHQ is essentially the British version of the NSA. And as I have told you from many reports and things that we know over the years of watching the CIA and how the government conducts surveillance, we know that this is very common practice for the U.S. government to use foreign intel agencies to spy, to do their domestic spying, because they can't do that without a warrant. So they use foreign intelligence agencies to do the actual spying for them. The decision to insert GCHQ as a backdoor was sparked by the denial of 2 FISA court warrant applications filed by the FBI to seek wiretaps of Trump associates. GCHQ did not work from London or the UK. In fact, the spy agency worked from the NSA's headquarters in Fort Meade, Maryland, with direct NSA supervision and guidance to conduct sweeping surveillance on Trump aides and associates. The illegal wiretaps were initiated months before the controversial Trump dossier compiled by former British spy Christopher Steele. The Justice Department and the FBI set up the meeting at Trump Tower, just as I told you. It's what my gut told me. I was right again. I know these fucking people. The Justice Department and the FBI set up the meeting at Trump Tower between Trump Jr., Manafort, and Kushner with controversial Russian officials to make Trump associates appear compromised, just as I suspected. Following the Trump Tower sit-down, GCHQ began drastically wiretapping GHQ began digitally wiretapping Manafort, Trump Jr., and Kushner. And I'm telling you, they had bugs in the room. Electronic eavesdropping devices were planted. That's not being told to the True Pundit by their high-level FBI sources. That is what I'm telling you. But the high-level sources are saying that the Trump Tower sit-down, the GCHQ, began digitally wiretapping Manafort, Trump Jr., and Kushner. By using GCHQ, the NSA and its intelligence partners had carved out a loophole to wiretap Trump without a warrant. While it is illegal for U.S. agencies to monitor phones without a warrant, it is not illegal for foreign intelligence agencies to do so. Just as I've told you and have been telling you for months now. Thank you very much. No need to send me a check. A thank you will be fine. I appreciate you. The wiretaps secured through illicit scheming have been used by U.S. Special Counsel Robert Mueller, Uncle Bob, have been used by Uncle Bob's probe of alleged Russian collusion in the 2016 election. But the evidence is considered poison fruit. You hear what they're saying right here? They're saying that Mueller has had access to all this intelligence they gained through their illegal eavesdropping. Corn on the cob. Very tasty, but it does get in your teeth. They're saying that Mueller has been using all this information he gained from this illegal eavesdropping, but that he can't really go public with it and use it toward any of his indictments because it would be exposing the criminal liability of these agencies. How about that, my friends? Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya, the Russian lawyer who spearheaded the Trump Tower meeting with the Trump campaign trio, was previously banned from entering the U.S. due to her alleged connections to the Russian FSB. The Russian FSB is the modern version of the KGB. Just days before the meeting, Veselnitskaya was granted special permission. Let me say that again. Just days before the meeting, Veselnitskaya was granted special permission in the form of a rare visa to enter the United States by Trump hater, U.S. Attorney for New York, Preet Bharara, who Trump fired. Just days before the meeting, Veselnitskaya was granted special permission in the form of a rare visa to enter the U.S. Sources say Bharara was following direct orders given to him by Attorney General Lynch. This permitted Veselnitskaya entry into the U.S. for the sole purpose of entrapping Trump associates to be used as fuel to commission the wiretaps. Just as my goodness. Everything that I felt in my gut, we're now learning was true. This puzzle is becoming very clear to me. How about you? Veselnitskaya may also have been paid. Of course she was. Remember that little news bit that I gave you yesterday, or was it day before yesterday, where I told you that Veselnitskaya had also been given a grant from the McCain Institute? That's right. Senator Magoo, you know he's mixed up in the details with his good friend, the Rotten Reverend. They're at the core of this. Trust me. You will find the Rotten Reverend and Senator Magoo woven into the fabric of this sheet, this embroidery of deceit What a nasty, nasty group of people. God willing, justice will be served on these people. I'm not letting them off the hook. I'll never stop. FBI sources say Steele was paid over $100,000 by the FBI to put together the dossier. Now, this follows a story that we just got like a week and a half ago. Different sources. Now, we have these high-level FBI sources telling the Investigative Bureau of True Pundit that, in fact, it is true that Steele was paid by the FBI. The dossier was commissioned by Comey and his friends, working for who? The Rotten Reverend. And Senator Magoo is up to his tumor and every bit of it. The illegal eavesdropping began as early as the fall of 2015. The initial targets were Flynn and Carter Page. The warrant to spy on Paul Manafort and Kushner was issued in September of 2016. My friends, it is time for these FBI officials to go public. Now, Mark Felt, Deep Throat, remained anonymous for 40 years and didn't actually give permission to Mr. Woodward to reveal his name until he was a few months away from, let's just say, achieving room temperature. It's time these people need to go public. It's too important. So the question is, will this end up like Watergate, with the government being forced to render justice to the criminals? And there's many of them here, and very, very high-level criminals. You're talking Comey, Lynch, Mike Rogers, John Brennan, Hillary's bitch boy, all involved. Will this end up like Watergate, with people actually being held accountable and going to prison, and the government being forced to admit the criminal conspiracy? Or will this be like JFK, where the government never actually comes out and admits the crimes and the criminal conspiracy at the highest levels of the government, but in the public domain, the truth is widely known? The truth will be known. The truth will come out. Drip, drip, drip at a time. It will come out. The only question is, will the people apply enough pressure to force the government to admit these crimes and hold those accountable who committed them? That is the question of the day. The answer to that, I do not know. But this is much, much worse than Watergate. I hate to say it's worse than the Kennedy assassination because it's probably on the same level. The Kennedy assassination, you had the conspiracy involved, the FBI, the CIA, working with organized crime, Cuban militiamen who were operating under secret programs for the CIA. And there's overwhelming evidence that the president, vice president, Lyndon Johnson, was a key part of it, with many other players on the peripheral, including those who funded, paid the multiple teams of shooters that were on site in Dallas that day. My guess is that there were either 3 or 4 three-man teams, a shooter, a spotter, and a radio man at 3 or 4 different locations, many of them using silencers. A couple of them did not have silencers. Back in those days, using a silencer on a weapon, on a rifle, would make it very inaccurate. And that's why they made sure that once they fired that first shot, they had to complete the job. That's why they put two guys without silencers in places where they knew it would be the last chance before he went under the bridge and sped away. When they had him in the kill zone for the triangulated fire, I believe that those final two shots, of which there were two head shots, one came from the corner of the fence there at the grassy knoll. The shooter there, most likely James Files. And another shooter, I believe, in the sewer drain, about 15 feet to the right front of the vehicle as it came to a near complete stop. In fact, it did come to a complete stop for like 2 seconds. And bang, bang! The Secret Service was involved. The mayor of Dallas was involved. The president, vice president was involved. The CIA, the FBI, the whole damn group of the deep state ran the operation. And they wanted it to look as bad as it did. They sent a very powerful message to anyone else who might challenge them. In the case of Watergate, it was Nixon himself was the target. They didn't assassinate Nixon. They just got him, forced him to resign. Nixon claims that it was the East Coast Republicans who were behind it. That would be talking about the Bush family, Prescott Bush, which, oddly enough, it was Prescott Bush who resurrected the political career of Richard Nixon after his loss to Kennedy in 1960. And let's not forget that it was Richard Nixon who ran the team of 40 under Eisenhower as his vice president that actually procured those Cubans, who are likely the ones who were probably at least one of the teams in Dallas that morning. Nixon once said regarding Lyndon Johnson something to the effect of comparing himself to Johnson and how he lost to Kennedy, comparing himself to Johnson, who of course took over for Kennedy after the assassination. And Nixon said something to the effect of, yeah, well, Lyndon was willing to kill for the job. I wasn't. Tricky Dick knew a lot of things. Veteran of Navy intelligence, deeply involved in the Cuba operations under Eisenhower, ran the secret team of 40, which put together the assassination teams, whose job it was to kill Castro. They never succeeded. Who would have been the beneficiary of this political espionage operation against then candidate Trump, then President Trump, and still President Trump? Because we're learning from these sources that this thing is still going on. Clearly there's some cover-up operations going on as well, but they're talking like this thing has never stopped, like it's ongoing. Who will be the primary beneficiary? Who would have been in the position, if successful, to make payment for the services provided? There's only one person I can think of. The Rotten Reverend. She could have made sure that her butt boy, her bitch, John Brennan, would be reappointed as CIA, head of CIA. She could have covered up all the crimes of the Justice Department, of which there are many, not just that, but many other crimes. The gun running and all the other things that corrupt Justice Department was involved in. And of course the chief executive himself, Obama. And believe me, he's up to his big ears in this event as much as everyone else. The Rotten Reverend and the deep state organized this plot. This is a Rotten Reverend plot, along with her peeps and the deep state. She was going to deliver for them after they delivered for her. The picture is becoming quite clear. We've got about 90% of the pieces here. We've been puzzling all this together now for months. I had a pretty good idea of what the picture was going to look like on day one when I did my very first Trump TowerGate video. I said in those maybe in the very first video, but certainly in the first couple videos, I said, hey, there's something going on here. This is bigger than Watergate. Sounds to me like it was a surveillance operation launched by likely the Rotten Reverend and Obama. And they used the law enforcement community, the intelligence agencies, and all the resources available to them in the deep state to destroy his candidacy. When that failed, they went after his presidency, and apparently it still going on to this day. You could say we've been vindicated, but I don't feel vindicated. I won't feel vindicated until all these people face the guillotine. These crimes come very close to life in prison and possibly the death penalty. These are serious crimes, what we're talking about here. The Rotten Reverend thinks the election was rigged. Yes, it was. Certainly tried. Now we know why. People asking the question, why is the Rotten Reverend out there doing what she's doing? Why is the deep state in a full court press to try to destroy this president? Why are all the agents of the media trying to destroy this president? Why is looks like the entire world outside of his supporters are trying to destroy this president? Well, it's pretty obvious now, isn't it? Because their necks really are, as Hillary said, in a noose. Trump knows everything we know. I'm sure he's got a plan. It's probably a matter of timing. For him to do this, he first has to establish himself as a good president. Make sure he's got good credibility and good poll ratings. Make sure he's won over some of the people who didn't think he would be a good president. Make sure that he's in good solid standing. He has to weed out some of the monsters. He has to accomplish a few things. And once he finds himself where circumstances look good and the timing looks right, I believe he's going to drop the hammer. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been TowerGate, day 199, September 21st, 2017. Sleep well. Thank you for tuning in.